Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Crosspoint Church. Thanks for joining us today. We had some technical issues on Sunday with our sermon and our recording equipment, so I've decided to come and record the sermon again just for anyone who might be interested. And we're starting a brand new series on the Bible book of Ecclesiastes. You can find Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament, just after Psalms and Proverbs. It's part of what we call the wisdom literature. And as you will see, Ecclesiastes is a very interesting book with a very important message, but a very unusual opening. So before I give too much away, let's start off by listening to our Bible reading today from Ecclesiastes chapter 1, which Tracy has recorded for us.
This is Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 1 to 11. These are the words of the teacher, King David's son, who ruled in Jerusalem. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. The sun rises and the sun sets, then hurries around to rise again. The wind blows south and then turns north. Around and around it goes, blowing in circles. Rivers run into the sea, but the sea is never full. Then the water returns again to the rivers and flows out again to the sea. Everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are never content. History merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here is something new, but actually it is old. Nothing is ever truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and in the future generations, no one will remember what we are doing now.
Well, thank you, Tracy. Well, that doesn't exactly sound like a positive and uplifting and inspiring speech, does it? No, not really. A few years ago, I was leading a youth Bible study, and one of the young guys in the group was reading the Bible for himself at home, which is great. And he turned up one week and he said, "Dave, what's with Ecclesiastes? What is that book about? Why is that in the Bible?" And yes, it is a very interesting book. And even though the author does sound rather cynical, this book is in the Bible for a reason. A few weeks ago, I was talking with some other pastors, and I mentioned to them that I was preparing a series on the book of Ecclesiastes, and a couple of them said that they believe this is the book of this generation. It's a big call, but they believe it's a very important book for this generation. And it is an important book with an important message, and it certainly is extremely relevant for this generation. So young people, I do hope you'll find this series helpful. But it's not just for the young people, it's also for the parents, the grandparents, for all ages. Someone in the USA once said, it is more important to get your children into heaven than to get your children into Harvard. And that is a very wise advice. That's what the book of Ecclesiastes is all about. The search for meaning and purpose. And yes, the author of the book did come to a conclusion. And yes, that conclusion is worth getting to. And yes, I will tell you today what his conclusion is. There are 12 chapters in Ecclesiastes. We will spend 4 sermons unpacking it and looking at the major themes and the big points. And it's a book worth reading for yourself during the week. I always encourage people to read the Bible for yourself during the week. The Gospels and the stories of Jesus are obviously fantastic. And all the letters in the New Testament teach us a whole lot of stuff. And Psalms and Proverbs are very valuable, especially if you only have a few minutes to read a few verses. You can learn a lot. Genesis and Exodus and all of those history books are very valuable. And the book of Ecclesiastes is also worth reading. And the book starts off by saying that everything is meaningless. So we might ask, who is it who is saying these inspiring, uplifting words about how everything is meaningless? So verse 1 of chapter 1 says, "These are the words of the teacher, King David's son, who ruled in Jerusalem." So this identifies the author for us. Because who was the son of King David who ruled in Jerusalem after King David died? Well, it was his son Solomon. King Solomon became king of all Israel and Judah in about 970 BC. He reigned in Jerusalem for 40 years as king, and his reign was a golden age in the whole history of Israel. And when Solomon first became king, God appeared to him in a dream. And God said to him, "What would you like? Ask me, and I will give it to you." And Solomon asked God for wisdom. He asked for wisdom so that he could govern the people well. And God was very pleased with Solomon's choice. And God said to Solomon, "I will give you what you asked for. I will give you a wise and understanding heart, such as no one else has had or ever will have. And I will also give you what you did not ask for, wealth and fame." And God kept his promise. God blessed Solomon with great wealth, great fame, and with great wisdom. The book of 1 Kings contains a few stories about Solomon and his achievements and his accomplishments and the things that he did, and about his wisdom. In 1 Kings chapter 10 we read that the Queen of Sheba heard about Solomon, and she came to visit. And when she arrived and when she saw everything and when she heard from Solomon, she was amazed. And 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 6 and 7 says, she exclaimed to the king, "Everything I heard in my country about your achievements and wisdom is true. I didn't believe what was said until I arrived here and saw it with my own eyes. In fact, I had not heard the half of it. Your wisdom and prosperity are far beyond what I was told." Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I think sometimes in life we hear about things, especially in advertising, maybe even in politics. We hear about a new product or a new idea, and the reality very rarely lives up to the hype. But in this case of Solomon, the reality was even greater than the rumours. And the Bible tells us that every year King Solomon received about 25 tons of gold. That's a lot. In fact, there was so much silver in his time that it became almost worthless because it was so common. So his wealth really was vast. Verse 23 and 24 say, "So King Solomon became richer and wiser than any other king on earth. People from every nation came to consult him and to hear the wisdom that God had given him." Now, some people think that wealth is the secret to happiness, and Solomon certainly had enormous wealth. Some people think that knowledge is the secret to success, and Solomon had great knowledge and wisdom, which is actually even better. Some people might say that being famous will make you happy, and Solomon was certainly famous. And some people might say that for a man, having lots of women is what makes you happy. Well, King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And Solomon achieved a lot. He was very well known, he was very wealthy, he was blessed by God with wisdom and knowledge. And I explain all of that about King Solomon just to give us some context, so we can understand that his opinion and his writings are valid. They have weight, they have merit and credibility. They're important. When Solomon talks about the meaning and the purpose of life, he's not just talking about, random things. He has experienced enormous wealth. He has experienced fame. He has experienced every pleasure a man can imagine. And when he talks about the futility of these things, he's not talking from a position of desire or a position of envy of someone else. He is speaking from personal experience. So as we read Ecclesiastes, that is our context. Solomon knows all about the things that people can desire. He has been there, he has done that, he has had it all, and he didn't just buy a t-shirt, he literally wrote a book, and that book is called Ecclesiastes. So let's get into verse 2 of chapter 1. "Everything is meaningless," says the teacher, "completely meaningless." He had all of these things, and he found them pointless, empty, meaningless. Verse 8 said, everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we're never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. Now, when people chase after fame or pleasure or wealth or whatever, what we really want is fulfillment. That's what we're really looking for. We want meaning, we want purpose, we want a sense of satisfaction. We want to feel fulfilled and content. That's the desires of our soul. And Solomon had everything that this world has to offer, and none of it provided lasting satisfaction. In Ecclesiastes chapter 2, Solomon continues talking about more things. In verse 1 he says, I said to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found that this too was meaningless. So I said, laughter is silly. What good does it do to seek pleasure? After much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine. And while still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness. In this way, I tried to experience the only happiness most people find during their brief life in this world. I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also had large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who lived in Jerusalem before me. And I collected large sums of silver and gold, the treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women, and had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. So I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labours. But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless. Like chasing the wind, there was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. Well, it does sound a bit cynical, doesn't it? It sounds a little bit depressing. And chasing the wind is such a great description of futility. And that is how Solomon found all of these things. That's how he felt about all the things he had accomplished. He had everything, but it did not satisfy. And he saw the futility of chasing after things, and he decided that none of it was really worthwhile. Then Solomon continued in verse 17. He says, so I came to hate life, because everything done here under the sun is so troubling. Everything is meaningless, like chasing the wind. I came to hate all my hard work here on earth, for I must leave to others everything I have earned. And who can tell whether my successors will be wise or foolish? Yet they will control everything I have gained by my skill and hard work under the sun. How meaningless. So I gave up in despair, questioning the value of all my hard work in this world. Some people work wisely with knowledge and skill, then must leave the fruit of their efforts to someone who hasn't worked for it. This too is meaningless, a great tragedy. So what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Their days of labour are filled with pain and grief. Even at night their minds cannot rest. It is all meaningless. So I decided there's nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realised that these pleasures are from the hand of God. For who can enjoy anything apart from him? So Solomon learned from experience that nothing can provide lasting fulfilment without God. Hard work is good, obviously. The ability to do all of those things he did, to work and to plan and to design and to create and to enjoy and to build, all of those are good things. But we cannot fully enjoy life without God. Life has no lasting meaning or purpose or substance without God. Now, I do want to specify that none of those things Solomon did are inherently evil. There's nothing evil about those things, about all those other things Solomon mentioned. Well, maybe apart from the 700 wives and 300 concubines. That was not a smart idea. Solomon wasn't perfect, and all of those women actually caused his downfall later in life. So that part of his life certainly would not be recommended. And there are some people in today's world who think that, multiple partners is all harmless and it's all fun and maybe it's even desirable, but don't believe it. Don't believe it. More and more research is coming out talking about the damage done to people emotionally and psychologically when you just hop from one bed to another. And it's not good for men, and it's definitely not good for women. So that's one part about Solomon's life that we definitely should not imitate. But leaving that aside, Solomon achieved a lot of good things. He was very wealthy, and there was nothing wrong with wealth. In fact, money in the bank is better than no money in the bank. But wealth alone is not the answer or the purpose of life. And there's nothing wrong with being famous, but fame by itself does not make people happy. And there's nothing wrong with pleasure, but selfish pleasure can cause harm to other people. And none of these things will satisfy the deep desires of our soul. There's nothing wrong with these things. They're not sinful things, but they're not the most important thing in life. And they should never, ever replace God at the top of our priority list. And King Solomon learned that chasing after all the other things is ultimately futile without God. It was like chasing the wind, completely futile. And is that how we want to spend our lives? Chasing the wind, looking in all the wrong places and finding that it's all empty and hollow and shallow and meaningless and unsatisfying. No, it's not. We don't want to waste our lives doing that. Solomon proved it's all futile, so we don't have to prove it again. We can learn from Solomon. Don't waste your life chasing the wind. Don't waste your time chasing things that do not truly satisfy. They're not really what we want. They're good things, but they're not the most important things in life. Last week I was talking to a lady who, well, she's dying with cancer. And so I'm pretty sure she is seeing life in a very clear perspective right now. She doesn't have long to go. And she was very grateful to God. She's telling me all about all the blessings of God in her life, and it was a really great conversation. But she has a son, and her son has wandered away from God. And she said to me, I keep on telling my son all that matters is Jesus. The only thing that matters is Jesus. Now, King Solomon lived about 950 years before Christ, so Jesus doesn't get a mention in the book of Ecclesiastes. But his point is the same. So what is the meaning and the purpose of life? What was the conclusion that Solomon came to after his search for meaning? Well, in the last chapter of the book, at the very end, he tells us, Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13 and 14. That's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. And he also says, God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad. So that is the conclusion of the importance of life, the meaning of life. It's the conclusion of a man who is blessed by God with wisdom and fame and fortune. He says we should fear God and obey his commandments. He said, without God, life is meaningless. And notice he didn't say life is meaningless. He said, without God, life is meaningless. With God, life can still be meaningful and fulfilling with joy and purpose and peace and hope, and the deepest needs of our soul will be met. All those things that we deeply long for. Now, obviously, as you probably know, the devil is a thief and he is a liar and he tries to steal away our joy. He tries to turn people away from Jesus. He tries to distract us with all of the other stuff so that we waste our lives chasing the wind and chasing after all the wrong things. But in John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus said, "The thief's purpose is to steal and to kill and to destroy. But my purpose," says Jesus, "is to give them a rich and satisfying life." So Jesus is the key to a meaningful, purpose-filled, fulfilling life. And the book of Ecclesiastes is very, very relevant for everyone in this generation, for all of us. Because far too many people are still chasing the wrong things in life. In fact, more and more. People are living in spiritual darkness. They have not been told the truth about Jesus. In fact, people have been told that there is no God, when in reality there is a God who loves them and cares about them. People have been told that they just evolved from a monkey and the monkey evolved from a slug, and so therefore life is completely random and meaningless and pointless. But the truth is that we're all created in the image of God, in the image of a loving, caring God. And our life does have purpose and our life does have value and meaning. And people try to find meaning or pleasure or purpose in things that are never intended to provide lasting satisfaction or joy or fulfillment. Jesus came to give us life. A life on earth that has purpose and meaning and value. And he also came to give us eternal life. Eternal life in a place that will have no death or crying or sadness or pain. This is really wonderful news. So learn from King Solomon. Don't waste your life by chasing the wind, chasing things that don't matter. Fear God and obey his commandments. This is our duty, this is our purpose, and it is the secret to a meaningful life. We find our fulfillment by enjoying the gifts that God has given us. Hard work, food. Enjoy the gifts. Use them in the way that God has intended them to be used. Honour the Lord, obey his commandments. That is how we find the fulfillment and the purpose and the meaning in life that we all look for. God will judge us for everything we do. That is why we must honour him and obey his commands. And then we can enjoy the rich and the satisfying life that only God can give. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that's great news. Praise God for his goodness to us all. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again next time.